On a September morning in 1897, 21 men stood inside a tiny stone blockhouse, staring out at a horizon completely swallowed by dust. Approaching them were 10,000 armed tribesmen. This was the northwest frontier of the British Empire, a volatile stretch of mountains separating British India from Afghanistan. The British held two major outposts here, Fort Lockhart and Fort Gulistan, but a rugged mountain ridge sat right between them, meaning neither fort could actually see the other. To bridge this blind spot, a small relay post called Saragarhi was built on the ridge. Soldiers stationed there used a heliograph, a mounted mirror that caught the sunlight to flash Morse code messages across the valleys. If the heliograph went dark, the two main forts would be blind to each other. This small mud and stone relay station had become the tactical link that held the entire defensive line together. That vulnerability became the target. During a massive regional uprising known as the Tira Campaign, thousands of Orakzai and Afridi tribesmen marched into the valley. They flooded the passes, severing all physical routes between the British strongholds, and completely surrounded the Saragarhi outpost. Trapped inside the blockhouse were Havildar Ishar Singh, 20 soldiers of the 36th Sikh Regiment, and one non-combatant champ follower named Dodd. The post's signaler sent a desperate flash to Fort Lockhart. The reply from the commanding officer offered no comfort. The enemy lines were too thick. Reinforcements could not break through. The men were entirely on their own. They had no route for retreat and absolutely no hope of rescue. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the tribal leaders approached the walls. They offered the Sikh soldiers a guarantee of safe passage if they surrendered the post. Havildar Ishar Singh gave a flat refusal. The mathematics of their decision were grim. Every single defender inside the walls was facing roughly 500 enemy fighters outside of them. As the assault began, the Sikh soldiers relied on strict military discipline. They formed up in alternating ranks, one row kneeling, one row standing, firing in synchronized volleys to maintain a continuous, devastating wall of lead. They were armed with the Martini Henry breech-loading rifle. Firing a massive .303 caliber round, it was highly accurate and could hit targets at over 500 yards. By combining that superior rate of fire with absolute discipline, the tiny garrison managed to stall the advance, forcing the first massive wave of attackers to fall back and find cover. As the battle stretched into the afternoon, the sheer volume of the attacking force began to take its toll. Each Sikh soldier had started the day with exactly 400 rounds of ammunition, and those supplies were running critically low. Changing tactics, the tribesmen set fire to the dry scrub and bushes surrounding the outpost. Thick columns of smoke rolled over the walls, blinding the defenders. Using the smokescreen to advance unseen, the attackers dug under the stone walls and caved in a section of the perimeter. The long-range firefight instantly collapsed into savage hand-to-hand combat. Severely wounded, Havildar Ishar Singh ordered his remaining men to fall back into the inner building. He and two other soldiers fixed their bayonets and charged directly into the breach, physically plugging the gap with their bodies. By 3:30, 19-year-old Sepoy Gurmukh Singh was the last man alive in the signaling tower. He flashed one final message asking for permission to dismount. He then carefully packed away his mirror, fixed his bayonet, and charged the attackers, screaming the Sikh battle cry. None of these final stands were made with the illusion of survival. Every bayonet charge and fired bullet was executed specifically to bleed the clock, buying a few more precious seconds of time for the neighboring forts. Tactically, the sacrifice worked. By stalling the tribal advance for 7 hours, the defenders gave Fort Gulistan the time it needed to prepare its own walls, preventing the siege from spreading to the larger garrisons. When British relief columns finally drove the tribesmen out of the valley 2 days later, they walked into the smoldering, jagged ruins of Saragarhi. The scale of the violence was staggering. Lying around the bodies of the 21 Sikh defenders were an estimated 600 dead enemy fighters. Outnumbered nearly 500 to 1, the men of the 36th Sikhs had successfully traded their own lives to completely break the momentum of a massive regional uprising. As the details of the defense were relayed back to London, it sent shockwaves across the British Empire. When the casualty report was read in Parliament, the members rose to their feet for a unanimous standing ovation. The admiration reached the absolute peak of the empire, with Queen Victoria publicly praising the courage of the soldiers who held the post. In a rare move, every single one of the 21 defenders was posthumously awarded the Indian Order of Merit, the absolute highest gallantry award available to Indian troops at that time. To ensure the sacrifice wasn't lost to time, multiple monuments were constructed, including a tall stone obelisk directly on the rocky ridge where they fell. Today, the defense of Saragarhi is taught in military academies worldwide as an example of total commitment to duty, a reminder that a victory isn't always measured by who is left standing, but by how long they held the line.